Okay, let's talk about the Valley of the Kings. What's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably Tutankhamun, right? Or maybe hidden treasure, mountains of gold, that kind of thing. And you're not wrong. For centuries, this desolate canyon on the west bank of the Nile has been the stuff of legend, a symbol of the incredible wealth and power of Egypt's pharaohs. But, it also holds a really fascinating mystery.
All right, let's get right into it. The whole idea of the Valley of the Kings, it makes you wonder. I mean, think about it. For 1,000 years, Egyptian pharaohs built pyramids. These huge, impossible to miss monuments to their own power. And then, poof, they just stopped. So here's the big question, the real head-scratcher. Why would you give up building a literal mountain of stone, something everyone could see for miles, for a secret hole in the ground in some remote valley? I mean, this was way more than just a change in architecture. It was a total 180 in how they thought about the afterlife. Suddenly, secrecy was everything, and showing off was out.
And the difference is just night and day. On one side, you've got Giza, right? A giant public statement of power that screams, "Look at me!" And on the other, you have this secret, heavily guarded city of the dead. Its official name, by the way, was something like the great and majestic necropolis of the millions of years of the pharaoh. Talk about a mouthful. The goal completely flipped. It wasn't about being seen anymore. It was about disappearing.
And this wasn't just some passing trend. No, for almost 500 years, right at the peak of Egypt's power during the New Kingdom, this one valley was the place to be buried if you were a pharaoh, a powerful queen, or even a super important noble. So you gotta ask, what was so special about this particular spot?
Well, it turns out the choice wasn't random at all. The pharaoh's top architects picked this valley for a very good reason. Its unique geology and geography offered the two things that were suddenly more important than anything else: secrecy and sacredness.
Just take a look at the mountain that towers over the valley. It's called al-Qurn, which the ancient Egyptians just called the Peak. And if you look at it, what does it look like? A pyramid, right? It's a natural pyramid. This sacred shape was a direct nod to the huge monuments their ancestors built. It's almost certain that this powerful symbol is what sealed the deal. They knew this was the place.
The valley is also what's known as a wadi, basically a dry riverbed. But every once in a while, massive thunderstorms would just dump rain, causing these insane flash floods. And tons of rock and debris would come rushing down, filling up the valley floor. And here's the crazy part. This super destructive force was actually the perfect security system. It's these floods that buried the entrance to tombs like King Tut's under feet and feet of rubble, hiding them from tomb robbers for more than 3,000 years.
But trying to actually work in this environment, it was a total nightmare. The rock quality is all over the place. You've got some good layers of limestone, sure, but you also have this really crumbly shale that does something terrible when it gets wet. It expands and cracks all the good stone around it. So for the ancient workers cutting these tombs, every single swing of the chisel was a huge gamble.
And things got so crowded down there that, mistakes were bound to happen. Get this. The pharaoh Set-Nokte's workers were busy digging out his tomb when they suddenly broke right through the wall and into the tomb next door. Oops, they had to scrap the whole thing and find a brand new spot. Talk about high-stakes underground construction.
Okay, so that's the outside, the natural landscape. Now, let's head inside. Because you have to understand, these tombs weren't just storage closets for mummies. They were seen as complex, sacred machines designed to literally launch the pharaoh's soul into the afterlife. And what's really cool is you can actually watch the architecture change over hundreds of years. The earliest tombs had what's called a bent axis design, so a sharp 90-degree turn in the corridor. Then, over time, that straightened out a bit into a jogged axis. And finally, the later tombs went for a straight axis, a direct shot from the entrance to the burial chamber, kind of like the sun god's journey through the underworld.
And the walls? Wow, they weren't just covered in pretty pictures. This was serious business. The decorations were actually sacred texts, basically divine instruction manuals for the afterlife. You had things like the Amduat and the Book of Gates, which were like guidebooks, giving the dead king all the magic spells and secret knowledge he'd need to get past the monsters of the underworld and be reborn with the sun every morning.
And the size of some of these places is just mind-blowing. We tend to think of a tomb as, a few rooms. But then you have KV5, the tomb built for the many, many sons of Ramesses the Great. It has an incredible network of more than 120 chambers and corridors. It's not a tomb, it's a legitimate underground palace.
So for thousands of years, the valley did a pretty good job of keeping its secrets. But then came the 19th and early 20th centuries, and a whole new kind of gold rush started.
This time, though, it wasn't for treasure, but for knowledge. It sparked this intense race between explorers and archaeologists, all trying to be the first to find what had been lost to time.
And the pace of discovery was just breathtaking. It really kicked off with Napoleon's expedition, when his scholars made the first modern maps of the area. Then you had these larger-than-life explorers like Giovanni Belzoni, who uncovered the absolutely stunning tomb of Seti I. So many tombs were being found, in fact, that a guy named John Gardner Wilkinson had to come up with the KV numbering system, which we still use today, just to keep them all straight.
Fast forward to the early 1900s. The main guy in charge of excavations was an American lawyer, Theodore Davis, and he'd had a lot of success, finding dozens of tombs. So in 1912, after years of digging, he famously declared that the valley was pretty much tapped out. He was convinced there was nothing left to find.
And honestly, most people agreed with him. Yeah, they'd found some incredible stuff, but the general feeling was that any really important, intact royal tomb was long gone. It had either been robbed thousands of years ago, or it had already been discovered. The golden age of exploration in the valley, it was over. Or so everyone thought.
But after Davis gave up his digging permit, an English lord, Lord Carnarvon, hired a really stubborn archaeologist named Howard Carter to take one last look. Carter just had this gut feeling that Davis was wrong, so he started a slow, methodical search of the one area everyone else had ignored, the valley floor itself, which was covered in debris. And then, November 1922, after years of coming up empty, his team's tools hit something hard, a single step cut into the bedrock, hidden under the remains of ancient workers' huts. It was the top of a hidden staircase, a staircase that led down to the sealed door of KV-62, the tomb of Tutankhamun, a tomb that had been sitting there almost perfectly untouched for 3,200 years. The exhausted valley that Theodore Davis had given up on had just produced the single greatest archaeological discovery of all time. Now, finding King Tut's tomb completely changed everything we thought we knew, but that wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. The Valley of the Kings isn't some dusty old history book. It's a living, breathing archaeological site, and believe it or not, it's still giving up its secrets. Today, the valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which means it's protected for all of humanity. And the work has changed. Teams from all over the world aren't just focused on digging anymore. A huge part of the job now is conservation, protecting these incredibly fragile tombs from the effects of time and tourism, to make sure they'll be around for generations to come. And yep, discoveries are still happening. We're now up to 65 known tombs and chambers. A site called KV-63, which turned out to be a kind of embalming workshop, was just found in 2005. And with new tech like ground-penetrating radar, scientists are seeing strange anomalies under the ground, little hints that there could be even more chambers, maybe even entire tombs, still waiting to be found.
And that brings us right to the big, final question, doesn't it? People have been searching this valley for centuries, and every time we think we've found it all, it surprises us with another secret. So the real takeaway here isn't just about what we've already found. It's about the incredible possibility of what might still be buried down there. After all this time, what else is the Valley of the Kings waiting to show us?